Where are your kids? There's a lot of people who are worried about your kids. Are you guys worried about them?
You still talk as if you're somehow misunderstood. No, wrong. You're fully understood. We see who you are, a manipulator, a liar, and a destroyer. It was 13 years today that JJ's adoption was finalized. I trusted you!
A life filled with unwanted attention. Oh, trauma.
If I was accountable for these crimes, I would acknowledge it and I would let you know how sorry I was. So I want you to watch, because God will show the world great miracles.
I trusted her with
our baby.
With a life.
With our baby.
That we.
With my little man, you know, I mean, it senseless. Don't make sense. And she knew. All she had to do was call us.
Beautiful women in here that have been here for 8 years because of family tragedies. It's the same like my case. A family tragedy, not a crime. A family tragedy. And they're waiting and they're facing the death penalty for a family tragedy. I know these women. I talk to them every day. I try to uplift, strengthen, and help women in this jail. And I think that's the purpose why I'm here.
July 25th, 2025. Phoenix, Arizona. The air in the courtroom is heavy with a heat that has nothing to do with the desert outside. It is the weight of 7 lifetimes. At the front of the room sits a woman who was once a beauty queen, a mother, and the image of suburban perfection. Lori Vallow. She sits with a poise that borders on the unnatural, her face a mask of serene indifference as the judge prepares to speak. The gavel falls twice. 2 additional life sentences to be served consecutively. This brings her total to 7. The sound of that gavel isn't just a legal formality. It is the final nail in a coffin made of concrete and iron. As we stand here in January 2026, Lori Vallow has been extradited back to the Pocatello Women's Correctional Center in the high desert of Idaho. For many, the death penalty is the ultimate end. But for a woman who believed she was a goddess destined to lead 144,000 people into the apocalypse, death would have been a promotion. Instead, she has been handed a living death. She is a deity stripped of her throne, buried in a facility where the only prophecy left is the sound of the lights flickering on at 5 a.m. Stay with me, because the reality of Lori Vallow's life in 2026 is a brutal clinical erasure of the goddess she thought she was.
This is Cold Case Chronicles True Crime, where every silence hides a secret, and every story deserves to be heard. We uncover the mysteries buried in time, the victims, the motives, the truths long forgotten. Subscribe now and join us as we dive into the world's darkest cases, because every smile hides a story, and every mystery deserves a voice.
The crime itself was a high-intensity descent into a darkness so deep it swallowed everyone in her orbit. September 2019. Rexburg, Idaho. The timeline is a clinical nightmare. First, Tylee, 16 years old. She vanished. Her body later found burned and dismembered in a pet cemetery on Chad Daybell's property. Then JJ, 7 years old. Asphyxiated, wrapped in plastic and duct tape like a piece of refuse. Chaos wasn't a sound. It was a sequence of cold-blooded decisions. While her children lay in shallow graves, Lori was in Hawaii, dancing on a beach, marrying a man who convinced her that her children had become zombies. Chills. That is the only word for the missed red flags. There was the death of her 4th husband, Charles Vallow, shot by her brother while she nonchalantly bought flip-flops at a drugstore. There was the attempted murder of Brandon Boudreaux. There was the mysterious death of Tammy Daybell, who was perfectly healthy until she wasn't. The system watched. The system investigated. But the delusion moved faster than the law. Analyze her psychology for a moment. Is Lori Vallow a victim of a cult-like psychosis? Or is she fundamentally incapable of the maternal instinct? To call her insane is too simple. She was calculated. She collected Social Security checks for the children she had already buried. She didn't snap. She planned. She didn't lose her mind. She replaced it with a version where she was the hero.
Yeah. Obviously, you were convicted of killing your kids. Where does that
Wrongly
disconnect?
convicted.
You believe wrongly convicted?
Absolutely, 100%.
So then, how do you address that? You were convicted of it. They're not here. So what happened? Do you still believe in those things of the dark and the light spirits and the zombies? Is that still part of your belief system, or have you changed your beliefs?
Whoever said that was part of my belief system.
Are you prepared for a life behind bars?
Sure.
How? What do you do to prepare that to be the rest of your life?
My life is mostly over because I'm 51 years old. I've had a wonderful life. I did have a wonderful life for, a long time. So it's just a different life.
Going over your case and all of it for years, I mean, it seemed like you had the life that so many wanted in Arizona. You had it all.
I loved our life here, yeah.
Why are we here? Like, why are we at the place we're at now? You had that life. Why throw it away?
It's tragedy. Families have tragedies. Things happen, and there was a domino effect of tragedies in my life, and that's really sad.
What do you describe that domino effect of what?
It's probably something that we should save for next time.
If you've stayed with me this far, you aren't just a casual viewer. You're an investigator. We are a small community of 70 people right now who refuse to let these stories fade into the concrete. Hit that subscribe button and become investigator number 80. Help us reach our goal of 100 voices so we can bring more light to these forgotten halls. Now, let's look at the evidence they didn't want you to see. Now, we enter the phase of milestone erasure. Lori Vallow is 52 years old today, in January 2026. In the world she imagined, she would be ruling a kingdom. In the world she created, she is a number, IDOC number 153745. The lost life sequence is agonizing. She will never see Tylee graduate college. She will never see JJ grow into the man his father hoped he would be. She will never have another wedding, another beach vacation, or another moment of the freedom she traded her children's lives for. Contrast her age milestones against the physical and spiritual decay of Pocatello. In 20 years, she will be 72. Her goddess looks will be a memory. Her skin sallow, her world reduced to the size of a parking lot. In 30 years, she will be 82. A ghost haunting a facility that only cares if she is present for the head count. In the living death, the worst punishment isn't the walls, it's being forgotten. By subscribing to Cold Case Chronicles, you're ensuring these cases stay active and these victims' names are never erased. Join our first 100 members. Hit subscribe and make sure the truth isn't buried with the files. The inside reality for Lori Vallow is a specialized kind of hell. She is currently held at the Pocatello Women's Correctional Center in Idaho. It is a mixed custody facility, but for a high-profile offender whose crimes involved the murder of children, her security level is absolute. The dehumanizing routine begins at 5 a.m. The lights buzz to life. A harsh, industrial glare that offers no warmth. Her concrete box is 80 square feet. No Hawaiian sunsets. No white sand. Just a metal slot in a steel door through which her meals are pushed. The food is starch and lukewarm protein, served on plastic trays that are scrubbed until they are gray. Then there is the prison hierarchy. In a women's prison, there is no one more despised than a mother who killed her own. She is a pariah. She is monitored by cameras 24/7, not just for her safety, but to ensure the goddess doesn't try to fulfill her own prophecy through self-harm. She is a target, a trophy for any inmate looking to settle the score for Tylee and JJ. Let that sink in. She wanted to lead the 144,000. Now, she can't even lead herself to the shower without an escort. But here is the part most people don't understand. The walls didn't just close in because of what Lori Vallow did in that Rexburg basement or those Arizona streets. They closed in because of the goddess she refuses to let die. It is January 2026. 2 years after her first conviction in Idaho, and mere months since her final sentencing in Arizona, the glamorous Doomsday mom from the news headlines has been replaced by a permanent resident of the Pocatello Women's Correctional Center. In the outside world, the house in Rexburg has new tenants, and the storage unit that once held the secrets of a double murder has been emptied. But inside Pocatello, the calendar has become a circle. Following her July 2025 sentencing in Phoenix, she was extradited back to Idaho in August, a journey marked not by a divine chariot, but by a transport SUV and a seatbelt fastened by a deputy who viewed her only as a liability. Stay with me, because while the public thinks the story ended with her life sentences, her behavior behind bars reveals a terrifying persistence. She isn't rehabilitating. She is waiting. To understand the evidence of her living death, we have to look at the psychological wreckage she carries into her cell every night. The why in Lori's case was never just about Chad Daybell or a fringe religious group. It was about a woman who decided that anything standing in the way of her own exaltation was a zombie to be disposed of. Even in late 2025, during her final Arizona hearings, she stood before the court and lectured the judge about the spirit world, claiming that the children she helped destroy were happy and busy in heaven. Analyze the psychology for a moment.
I am no stranger to tragedy. The breaking up of a family is tragedy. On June 25th, 2019, Brandon Boudreau decided that I was responsible for his family tragedy. And I'm really sorry that he feels that way.
No, Your Honor, I'm going to object again to testimony.
All right. The jury is reminded that what is said in closing statements or closing arguments is not evidence, it is not testimony. The intent of the closing argument is for each side to argue what the evidence shows.
We've all experienced tragedies in our lives, and naturally people want someone to blame, someone to pay a price. My brother is no longer here. We can't ask him about that day. There were things presented in this case that I did not know.
And I'm going to object again to testifying, Your Honor, and ask to strike.
Sustained.
Things that I saw, I thought.
And again, I'm going to already ask to strike.
All right. The defendant cannot testify to things that were not testified to from the witness stand.
Because this is the theory the prosecutor wants you to see, it is limited. How can we say clearly when the law only allows for a skewed view of things? The devastation this family has gone through is the tragedy. After almost 6 years, it's time for healing.
In her 2026 reality, there are no drugs to blame. There is no methamphetamine or temporary insanity. There is only the clinical, cold narcissism of a woman who represents herself in court not because she is a lawyer, but because she believes no one else is worthy of her voice. She has appealed her convictions, claiming constitutional violations, but as the Idaho Supreme Court reviews her briefs in early 2026, the concrete remains her only constant. If you've stayed with me this far, you aren't just a casual viewer. You're an investigator. We are a small community of 71 people right now who refuse to let these stories fade into the concrete. Hit that subscribe button and become investigator number 80. Help us reach our goal of 100 voices so we can bring more light to these forgotten halls. Now, let's look at the evidence they didn't want you to see. Now, let's look at the dehumanizing routine of her life in the high desert. Pocatello is a facility defined by the wind and the silence of the surrounding plains. For Lori, the routine is a cage. The lights flicker on at 5 a.m. A harsh, industrial buzzing that signals the start of another 24 hours of nothingness. Her concrete box is a far cry from the beaches of Kauai. There are no silk robes here, only the orange jumpsuit and the rough wool of a prison blanket. Her meals are served through a metal slot. Starch, lukewarm soy, and the metallic tang of Idaho tap water. The milestone erasure is already visible. At 52, the beauty queen looks are fading into the sallow skin of the long-term incarcerated. Every night, she sits in a cell while her husband, Chad Daybell, sits on death row. They are separated by miles of Idaho wilderness and a legal system that has finally stopped her divine mission. She will never see her son Colby's life unfold from the outside. She will never know the simple freedom of walking into a drugstore to buy flip-flops without an armed escort. She is a goddess in a world of one. In the living death, the worst punishment isn't the walls, it's being forgotten. By subscribing to Cold Case Chronicles, you're ensuring these cases stay active and these victims' names are never erased. Join our first 100 members. Hit subscribe and make sure the truth isn't buried with the files. As we conclude this deep dive, we must maintain our no sympathy disclaimer. J.J. Vallow, Tylee Ryan, Tammy Daybell, and Charles Vallow are the only names that matter. Their futures were stolen so Lori could live out a delusion. Her struggle in the Idaho Department of Correction is a direct consequence of her own unthinkable choices. We do not defend her. We analyze her as a warning of what happens when the ego consumes the soul. But it leaves us with the ultimate philosophical dilemma. Is life without parole in these conditions justice? Or is it a living death that is more cruel than the execution she avoided but her husband faces? Is keeping Lori Vallow alive in a state of isolated, self-imposed divinity a civilized punishment? Or is it a form of societal revenge that we've simply sanitized for the public? Justice or revenge? You decide. The case of Lori Vallow Daybell is just one file in a very dark cabinet. Tomorrow, I'm opening the vault on a story even more chilling than this one. If you aren't subscribed, you're going to miss the update that changes the way you look at the justice system forever. Don't get left outside the walls. Join the 71 of us here, hit subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.